All right, we're bringing back Gordon Wagoner, who is our official CrossWalkMoth MC, to do his work. All right, let's give it up for Gordon.
Hello, hello. Okay, I want to make sure as everyone put their name in the hat that wants to put their name in the hat, I can walk over and grab a name in case someone has not been able to make it up. Anyone else? Okay, great.
I'll come back. This is off? Oh yeah, great. So if one rule, just make sure that we're obviously incredibly supportive of each other, especially on today's theme. I think that's going to be pretty easy to do because we're kind of celebrating each other, right? When we tell a story about how this community, this church, this congregation has provided sanctuary for you. So first up, put our hands together for Carrie. Carrie.
Well, good morning. Okay, so my crosswalk story starts about 20 years ago. And I want to preface that by saying that I was born and raised in church, and my faith has always been just a very important part of my life. But about 20 years ago, at that time, I was attending a very conservative women's Bible study. And it was becoming just increasingly very narrow and boxy. And I was talking to my good friend Meg Losi, about it. And she had already jumped ship, so to speak, and was attending here. And she had been telling me how much she enjoyed it and some of the really cool out-of-the-box kind of things that Pete was doing. And she said, he does the midweek Bible study, so why don't you give that a try? So I did. So I started off the new year in January of 2006, attending that Bible study. And I have been a faithful attendee of that ever since. And I was really drawn to Pete's style of teaching. I love the way that he was able to take a very familiar old Bible story and just give it a new insight, a new perspective. And I really like that. But then slowly, little by little, he started doing what we jokingly call barbecuing the holy cows, right? So, yeah, digging into those theological concepts that are so deeply embedded in conservative Christian thought. And, some of them I could ride with, like letting go of the concept of hell. That was a no-brainer for me. It was very freeing. But others, not so much. When he started tackling things like atonement theory and what does it mean to be saved, or the Trinity, or the infallibility of the Bible. I mean, yikes. I didn't even know there was other ways to even think about some of those things. But I wanted to be on board. I mean, it made sense intellectually, but those old paradigms were so deeply embedded in my spiritual psyche that it was just really hard to let go. So Pete likes to say that I'm the poster child for what it looks like to deconstruct and reconstruct your faith. And it's a process. And there was a time when I found myself actually curled up in bed crying because I just felt like the anchors had been knocked out from under me, and I was just adrift spiritually. But I hung in there, and I kept studying and reading, and thank goodness for that midweek Bible study. That was my safe place, my lifeline. That was where I could go and ask those hard questions without feeling like I was a heretic, that I could just go deep and dialogue with other people that were on that journey at different places along the path. And honestly, I don't know how anybody can deconstruct and reconstruct their faith without a community like CrossWalk. Yeah. First of all, to have a pastor like Pete, who was not only willing to do the hard work and the deep dive into the scholarship and the research, but then to actually teach it, have the courage to take the risk to actually teach it out loud, and then to lead us on that journey together. So Pete, we are so incredibly blessed to have you. Thank you. Thank you. And then just to have a community of believers who not only encourages you to step out of that theological box, but to actually hold your hand and steady you while you're doing so. And just that support and encouragement. So thank you, CrossWalk, for being that community. Thank you, Pete, for being so patient with me over the years and just answering my questions, sometimes the same question over and over again, as I just struggle to get the concept sometimes. And I want to especially thank you for those of you who have been with me in those small groups and journeyed with me. Linda and Lauren and just so many of you. You've been my lifeline. And I'm still in process. Pete assures us that it's a lifelong process. But we're in it together. And I'm just so grateful and continue to look forward to that journey, continuing that journey together. So thank you. Thank you, CrossWalk.
Thank you, Carrie. That's beautiful. This one is blank. So's this one. And this one. Norm! Come on down. Norm, do you want me to come to you or are you good? Can I come to you? All right, sound guys, make sure I don't have brutal feedback here. Here you go, Norm.
Yeah, bear with me, guys. I'm a wobbler, so I don't walk around so well, and I'm also very, very shy. But I'll get on with this. When I first came to this church, I felt so at home, and for a number of reasons. There's a lot about me there's a lot about me that outside is not so accepted or even tolerated. For one thing, I am a Christian, but I am super, super liberal theologically. I'm somewhere far to the left of Pastor Pete. But this church accepts people with every kind of theology. And for that reason, I feel at home. But in the second place, I'm an alcoholic, and this church doesn't just tolerate or accept alcoholics. It has a terrific program for alcoholics, an AA program for recovery. I will be 36 next month in sobriety. And I'm also old in an ageist society, but old people are, again, not just tolerated. Yes, we're celebrated here at CrossWalk. And finally, I'm gay, and that is not such a good thing outside, but here, you know, gay people are not just tolerated or accepted, they're celebrated here as expressing their love in a way that's perfectly natural for them. Anyway, I felt so at home. I felt so at home so quickly in this church, I did something that I would otherwise never have dreamt of doing. I got into a bathing suit. And I took the plunge right up there on the stage, and this guy dunked me. And it was the best dunking in the world, and it was performed by the best pastor I've ever had, the heart and soul of this church, Pastor Pete. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Norm. Love you, buddy. I'll just cover my walk back to the stage by saying, Norm kind of touched on a theme that's a big thing for me too, is over my time here at CrossWalk since, I think I've been coming here since 2009, I'm just constantly moved by what an accepting place it's been. I remember working at the greeting table in the first fire, when all of these strangers were coming to our campus for the first time, and they were all moved by what a warm place it was immediately. And when I moved my parents out here in 2019 and then again in 2020, you know, this community kind of opened their arms and just loved them immediately. So thank you for that. Crystal Largo. Should I come to you, Crystal? Okay, you got it. Reserved a final spot for you. Put that there. Okay. Candace Ramsey? I saw you. Come on up, Candace.
Thank you, Gordon. Good morning, everyone. I'm wearing my special socks today. These say, become the person your dog thinks you are. Also, I'd like to start with, I took a mini seminar to kind of doing a little dive into the Christ consciousness that we're all capable of. And the instructor was talking about sin, and his best version I'd ever heard of sin is the refusal to become who we really are. And that kind of spoke to me. I wasn't going to speak, but it with CrossWalk about 5-6 years ago, it became really apparent to me in my life. I have a longer story. I think I've gone over it, but it became apparent that I needed to, I really needed to mature a little more in life and accept things for what has happened and just really grow and heal. And so as I walked into CrossWalk, I came in gently, untrusting. But as time has gone on, CrossWalk has been a safe place for me to really become unsafe in my own self, to what I say, to the metamorphosis, I'd say, that I am currently in right now, and that may take the rest of my life. But CrossWalk has allowed me to step out, to challenge, to people who've been in praxis with me. No, I don't always have the best language. People said I used to swear like my father, but it's still a safe place. And I have people attest. I challenge him all the time. I say things, and then it always welcomes me back and continuing it, and it's catapulting me into growth. It's opening my world and opening my love, actually my heart, which has always been an untrusting place, to actually love all of you and to trust all of you. So thank you for being here, CrossWalk.
Thank you, Candace. Right, let's see here. Next is Lauren Haas if needed. Yes, Lauren. We need you, Lauren.
Okay. How many of you have seen the movie Ratatouille? All right. The scene where the rat and the boy make the ratatouille, and the food critic comes in and he sits down at the table and they give him the ratatouille and he takes a bite and he's instantly transformed to his mother's kitchen, and he comes home crying and she dries his tears and sets him down and gives him the bowl of ratatouille, and everything is wonderful and he feels safe and secure and loved. Remember that. So I'm in another church. We just moved to Napa, Lisa and I, and we started in a new church that we found pretty dynamic. I'm in this men's group, and we're talking about a lot of things, and somehow this topic of evolution comes up. And I say, well, yeah, pretty much evolution is the way God created and populated the planet, and things evolved as part of the natural creation. That wasn't very popular in that group. A couple weeks later, I'm in the church office, and the pastor takes me aside. He says, well, so-and-so from this men's group said that you supported evolution. I go, yeah. He goes, evolution is a dying scientific theory. There's no basis in it. And, the world was created in 6 days, and I had that ratatouille moment in reverse. I remembered a number of instances when I was a kid growing up and I was bullied, right? When I was 5, we moved to California. Part of the deal was we got new bicycles. I got sick almost immediately. Had a heart murmur, couldn't ride my bike, couldn't go to school. It was really not good when you're 5 years old. About 6 or 8 months later, my heart's better. First day I'm on the bicycle, I ride up the street. I don't even know the neighborhood very well, right? I ride up the street and I pull in this court, and this teenager grabs the handlebars of my bike. He says, what are you doing here, kid? This is my court, you can't come in here. I'm like having the happiest day of my life back on my bicycle, and this guy bullies me, and I completely lock down and cry. And he finally lets me go, and I go home crying. I'm a mess. Right? Not good. Now I'm 11. I'm on a playground on an army base in Germany, and there's this one guy who I kind of like. He's kind of a cool guy because he wears army fatigues all the time. And he says, he's kind of a braggart, and we're having this conversation. We were playing marbles, by the way, which was the game that you played. Anyway, he says, yeah, this Saturday I went with my dad and we parachuted out of a helicopter on the army base. And I'm looking at him, I go, really? He says, yeah. And tomorrow we're gonna eject from a fighter jet in Germany. And I says, oh, come on, you're not doing that. He grabs me by the throat, says, are you calling me a liar? If you're calling me a liar, we're gonna fight. And he puts me in a headlock, and I can't get out of it. Fortunately, the recess bell rings. I get away. Those things stick with you. You know, even when you don't realize it. I didn't realize it when I was having that moment with the pastor, but afterwards I realized that's where that comes from. So there was good things at that church. We got to do divorce care. We had a lot of good friends, but it got to be untenable as they were teaching a lot of stuff about the role of women, marriage. Pretty much had to be a Republican to be there. This was during the gay marriage ban amendment thing was going on, all this stuff. And it wasn't good. And I got to look this one up. I looked at Lisa and I said, in the words of the immortal Eric Burden of the Animals, we got to get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, we got to get out of this place because, girl, there's a better life for me and you. We walked into CrossWalk. Yeah. And started going to I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon Bible study. I laid it all out there. It was pretty weird. I mean, I said a lot of things that would never have flown where I was, and Pete was eating it up. and it's like, I can be who I am at this church. I have a place that I can feel loved for who I am, and I can love people the way I want to and supported, and nobody tells me I can't. Thank you, CrossWalk.
Thank you, Lauren. That was beautiful. Pam. Sorry, there's a lot on here I had to read. Come on up, Pam.
Good morning to you. I did not start going to church until I was 18, and my beginnings at church were born out of tragedy in my life and me looking for a place to find some answers. And the church, I was young enough and naive enough and didn't have church experience, and I did not know or understand that not all churches were created the same. And so the church that I was going to, after I had been there for a few years, they fired the senior pastor. And the reason why they fired the senior pastor was because his college-ish age son was openly gay. And in sort of their reasoning, it was because that senior pastor did not have control over his household if his son was gay. And they weaponized the Bible to sort of give the reasoning for that and to make it make sense. And it didn't sit well with me, but I kept going. And then a couple of years later, the worship pastor was someone who had struggles with addiction, and he did not, quote unquote, have his addiction under control, so they fired him. And then a couple of years after that, I was going through a divorce. And all that time that I had been at that church, which leaned, I now understand, to the right, there were things that I couldn't do as a woman. And basically, what my role there was, I was relegated to teaching or leading other women or children. There would never have been an opportunity for me to even stand up here the way I'm standing up here today. And so when I went through my divorce, I lost my privileges. And I looked around, and there was a gentleman who had also gone through divorce, But he didn't lose his privileges the way that I had, and when I, raised my hand to inquire about that, I had lost my privileges because I was no longer under the covering of a man, and therefore I was, some sort of a risk or something, and so I couldn't even teach women or children anymore, and that was the point where I made my exit. And I had been at that church for 17 years during sort of a very critical time of my faith formation. And so all of that bad theology, the things that I didn't agree with, the ways that they treated me as a woman, and then as a divorced woman, I bore the scars of that. And so from then on out, and including when I got to CrossWalk, I've made very purposeful choices now about the spaces that I'm going to inhabit and the places where I'm going to lend, my leadership and my gifts. And so for me, and there's kind of been a theme this morning of how we've gotten here because other spaces and places were not safe, did not welcome us or affirm us or encourage us. CrossWalk has been that space for me the way that it has been for so many of you. And so I'm grateful to have a place where there's shelter, where there's sanctuary, where there's welcoming, and where there's affirmation, not just, as Norm said, tolerance, but I'm loved and supported like we all are here just for being who we are. So, thanks.
Thank you, Pam. I'll also throw a little flowers her way. I think another moment, I probably shouldn't go twice, right? Sorry about that. But another moment of sanctuary for me actually was I was honored to run sound for the big women's retreat that Pam and others put together. And that was a really, really beautiful moment of sanctuary for me to observe that, to just be kind of a fly on the wall in that room when this huge gathering of women that had just organically kind of happened. I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't a lot of work, and it was a ton of work. But the turnout for it was incredible. I know everyone's experience at it was just incredible, and it was really moving to me to just bear witness to that. So what an amazing community we have that is able to foster those kind of things. And we're getting towards the bottom of the basket here, so I just want to say sometimes when people get up to share, it spurs ideas in your head. So if you've decided, oh wait, I do have a story that I want to share, just like pass it up towards the front and I'll make sure it gets in here. I don't want anyone to feel left out. Okay. As I open this one. Oh, Ann Wagoner, if needed. Come on up, Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann. I also felt bad being up here so much today, but I also have found CrossWalk to be such a place of sanctuary and such a place of unlearning. When I was young, I loved going to church. We went to a charismatic Episcopal church, which is really unusual because it was speaking in tongues and movement of the Holy Spirit, but also Episcopal. So it was the prayers of the people and Catholic light, right? The liturgy and all of that. So, and I loved it. But one of the things that I learned there and throughout my life was that there are things that can disqualify you from service to God. And that was always hard to understand, because it felt like there were things that could maybe disqualify you from being loved by God. And later in life, when I was in my mid-20s, I taught English at a university in Vietnam. And I was there for about 4 years, and I just loved it. It was a place of great growth in my faith. I was there with a Christian organization, and my purpose in being there was to share God's love by being an excellent teacher of English. And And one of the things I appreciated about being there was that I got to meet God in a new way. I got to meet God without the clothing of the American flag. And I realized as I was living there that so many of the things that I had thought of as being God was actually some shape underneath an American flag. And to take that flag off, I was like, oh, wow, God is so much bigger and different than I thought. It was really extraordinary. When I came back to the US, I was working as a recruiter for the organization that had sent me there. And one of my jobs was to speak to churches and congregations. And often when I would call a church in, let's just say Texas, or Oklahoma, or anywhere really, they would often say, oh, we would love to hear more about what God is doing in Asia, but we would love to hear that from your husband. And I was like, I don't have one. And also, this is my job, guys. So it was hard because it was one of those ways where you were disqualified from sharing what was happening. It feels like a way in which our church has like cut itself off at the knees by silencing half the people who live with us. So it was hard. And so I kind of stopped going to church. And around that same time, I started dating Gordon, who is now my husband. I didn't know if that was going to happen at that time, just so you're aware. he knew apparently. But I was living in Seattle, and he was living here. And I was a little bit scared about the idea of love, so we dated long distance for a year, and then I moved to Oakland, because, I could be in California, but not in Napa. So then we dated that distance for a year. And during that time, I started coming to this church. I would drive up here from Oakland, I would sit in the back, and I would be a church ninja. And I would come in late and watch what was going on, and then I would sneak out before anyone could say hello to me, because, oh my gosh. So I was in and out for, 2 years, the church ninja. But I needed to observe you and see if you were really serious about what you said you believed about God. And I was really amazed by the love that I found here. When I moved to Napa, Gordon and I moved in together. It was the right choice for us. But we weren't married. And there were people in my family and loved ones in my life who wrote me long letters about how terrible it was and how, can you even believe in God and live this way? And again, I felt disqualified from God's love. And I felt rejected by people who were very close to me. I called a loved one to tell them about this exciting news that I was moving in with Gordon, and they hung up on me, and we did not speak for several weeks. And it took years to rebuild that relationship. It was hard. And that was about the time when I started to want to contribute to CrossWalk with my gifts, and I started to want to, participate in the music and the greeting, and I just thought, but I'm living in sin. So I can't do that. And I remember going to someone and talking to them about, I'd really like to contribute, but I'm pretty sure I'm disqualified. And the love that I received and the what are you even talking about reaction that I received was so great for me. It was such an unlearning of these things, these lessons I had learned through life of the ways in which you can be disqualified from service to God and even love God's love. So thank you for being a community that loves without disqualification.
Thanks, Ann. Rebecca. Come on up, Rebecca. Crystal, you're on deck, just so you know.
Hi. So to start the story, I was raised in the church and expected to be involved in every aspect of it in Oklahoma and also here in Napa. And it never grabbed me. So when I went away to college, I quit going to the church, and I've been away for decades. So about 3 years ago, I decided that it was time for me to seek out a church and see again. I had tried it once, didn't work. So I had been here for disasters volunteering, both in the fires and the earthquake. And I immediately thought of CrossWalk because it is a place of sanctuary and it is a safe place for people who have lost everything. So I came here. I didn't really know what to expect. And when the first time I came in, first of all, the seating was like this. I'd never seen a church that had seating like this. And people were so nice and friendly and actually talked to you and realized you were new and greeted you. And so I started coming. And I never have gone anywhere else. I've been here for the last 3 years. This is a place of sanctuary for everyone. And that is so important to me because I believe that we are all God's creations. It doesn't matter what we look like or what our sexuality is. We're all God's creatures. And we have such a loving community here. I looked at the sign, beloved community, and it has really become a beloved community for me. I always feel warmly welcomed. I can ask any question that I want to. I can express any opinion that I want to, and I'm not going to be discarded or looked down upon. And I am so happy to be here. This has enriched my life. You are all such lovely people, and I'm so glad to know you. And it's always good when there's a bad time going on to come here and just feel embraced and nurtured and like, okay, I can go on. I have this community. So thank you all for who you are and what you bring to us. I'm so grateful to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. All right, Crystal Largo, do you want me to come to you? Okay. I will help you. Bring it in for Crystal.
I want you to know that you're one of the few people on earth that I didn't kind of slap down when you call me Crystal. I like my name of Crystal Largo, all one word, first name, please.
Sorry about that.
There's another story there, but it's really long, so it's not for today. You have to wait for that one. I'm going to lay this here for the moment. So, it's just a miracle that I'm here, that I'm standing in front of you. I stood here last year, shortly after I had begun coming to CrossWalk. And I was amazed that I stood up and talked, but the moth thing, that's pretty close to butterflies. And the moths and the butterflies and the chrysalises and the cocoons. Do you all know that cocoons are for moths, although we interchange the word with the butterflies? Then the butterflies have the word that's really hard to spell and even say, the chrysalis or the chrysalises. So they're both close to my heart, and I loved telling you part of my story last year of the unsung hero of Salvador in my life, who means Savior in Spanish. Now, update to today. I came at the February the 3rd, 2024 Black History Month celebration here. And Rachel, who is sitting right down here front, was the first person at CrossWalk to greet me. I was sitting over on the side, and it was pretty dark in the sanctuary for the people on stage to show up. And Rachel came to me kind of out of the dark like a beautiful blonde angel and spoke to me and loved. I think I had a different one of my walking staffs with me then. But anyhow, she was first. The next experience that was really amazing to me was I was sitting eating some of that amazing, wonderful barbecue in their gym, which I was a church with a gym. Wow, that's pretty interesting. And all of a sudden, there was two women standing next to me, leaning towards me and asking about me and welcoming me, and that was Carol and Carrie. And I have a never-fading picture, a photograph in my mind of their smiling faces as they leaned close to me and talked to me and acknowledged that I was there that night. And folks, it's just increased, it's just multiplied exponentially because I kept coming back and coming back. And the meetings at Proxus with Pastor Pete were significant in allowing me to become acquainted with many of you. I will say, because it's honest truth, I am still a member of the Napa Valley Unitarian Universalist Church here in Napa. And I'm extremely active in service there, but they're not as much of a God-centered church as I needed. So I came to the Black History Month for two reasons last year. I came again this year just to honor those reasons beginning to be met wonderfully. But I came because I had to have. I was hungry, I was starving for a church where I could, as I put it bluntly, I could exalt the name of God without anybody frowning at me or looking uncomfortable, but rather welcoming me and celebrating with me. So that was one of the main reasons I came to the Black History Month celebration. The second reason, equally as strong, is because I have been at a distance, a very long distance relationship online with a young black man in the evil country of Nigeria. And amazingly and miraculously, I fell in love with him the minute I touched the friend button on Facebook. But he waited at least 7 months to tell me that he had also fallen in love with me that quickly, because we are very far apart in ages. I'll be 89 this week on the 20th, and he will be 33 the following Sunday, the 23rd. So we think it's cool we have birthdays close together in the dates, but of the years, there's a huge difference. So talk to me about love. If you don't believe in it at any stage, in any age, in any combination, talk to me about love. You all know that language, don't you? You all know the language of love because I have felt it here over and over and over from many of you who I know now and many of you that I haven't quite had the pleasure. something that very few of you here know about me is that I also ended up being attracted to here because of your enormously welcoming and celebratory, as Norm said, part of the making the LGBTQ plus community a part of your beloved community, as the sign says here. And since 1986, I have been an intimate part of the LGBTQ plus community as something that's hardly ever spoken of, and that is a bisexual woman. It's a lot of my friends that are gay or lesbian are still waiting for me to make the real decision of which one. But for me, it has occasionally been both. And I'm kind of a both sort of girl. You know, I like meat and potatoes and salad and fruits and all those desserts that you guys bring here. So my desire about the Black History thing was because I wanted to find a place where I could be certain, really certain, that when I brought my fiance here from Nigeria, Africa, that he would be welcome. He would have a new home already made for him to walk into, where he could also exalt God, because he's a stronger Christian than I am. So I'm going to lay this down for just a second here while I undo. Oh, wow.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, Crystal Largo.
Okay. Perfect. I just get a hold of it here. You're going to be part of the
Got it?
fun.
Okay.
Okay, so I love myself enough to buy myself birthday presents. This is my birthday present for myself this year. I'll be just a moment longer. Yeah, you can do some rattles.
Okay.
It comes with 2 egg rattles. So I've had tambourines before, and I gave them away to 2 of my grandsons years ago, and I've always been sorry that I didn't have a tambourine. So I'm going to use my tambourine for just maybe a minute or 2 to sing you a love song that I wrote back in 1987. Just a few words of it. So you can shake those rattles if you want to. I stand here amazed that all there really is love. I stand here amazed that all there really is love. I look and I look in all the places and the faces of people around me, but the truth of the ages is that love in its stages is always around us. That's where it resides. Me loving myself and you loving yourselves, and us loving each other. Love is amazing. Give it freely, it will come back to you, I promise. From God and others.
Thank you, Crystal Largo. That's okay. That's good. Hey, I don't want you to spill this. Big round of applause for everybody. Again, what a great community we have, and I think it's important to remember that we are stewards of that community, right? That the culture that we're talking about celebrating here today is actually a culture that is stewarded by all of us, not just Pete. Pete reports to a board.
that we elect, you know. It's okay. So anyway, I think Anne has a benediction to sing. So last but not least, come on up, Anne.
Thank you all for sharing today. That was really beautiful.